Hello, hello, everybody. I'm not going to be able to pronounce that last one. Oh my, it's crazy. Hello, Migvel. Hello, Bodie. Hello, Rusty Bread. See you here, Rusty Bread. I'm getting like a bunch of rounds. What the hell is this update again? OBS? What are you doing to me? Hey, Super Saw. Good to see you. Lovely to have you here. Switch up my camera as well. A light first. Boop. There we go. Lovely to see everybody. Oh, Connor doesn't have a crown. What the hell is happening with this? I don't think anyone can see this even. Why doesn't Connor have a crown? No. Yeah, I hope everyone's doing well. Welcome back to another weekly episode for feedback. Oh, you can see them as well. Oh, now you have one. I also have no idea what they are. So I think it has something to do with top fans, and now you have XP that you gain? Oh, it is supposed to be... Wait, is like YouTube actually investing in like the streamer thing? Because it feels to me that it's somewhat like Twitch kind of has like their what they were called, like their points, right? Like channel points. Maybe this is the way that like YouTube is trying to compete with that. Maybe. Interesting. Be curious if they keep expanding on it. Let's see. Hello, Mike. Hello, Papus. Good to see you both. Done. Ah, there we go. Now I need to... Hey. It is a Playgrounds Games t-shirt. Yeah. It is. It is also... It is also dirty from like last time because I spilled something on it and it's not coming out. So yeah. Good job, me. Oh yeah, we got the power armor. The back. The helmet. Do not recommend it because apparently it gets really moldy. So yeah. We also have like the Far Cry flamethrower up there as well. Barely see it though. Got like the Doom guy up there. Got like a char from Guild Wars next to it. Oh my god, it's so messy in here. I should really blur my background, honestly. You really wanted the Doom helmet? That would be sick. I've always wanted to have the what is it? Like the Pip-Boy, like the Fallout Pip-Boy. But I think they only did them with Fallout 4, right? Fallout 4 Special Edition, or maybe 3 even. Yeah, always wanted the little Pip-Boy. Hey, Chaba! Well, CHXXBA. Hello, good to see you here. Hello, Henrik. Yeah, quick little update from my side. It's been a busy week. So I don't know if I said too much about this actually, but so I'm currently like on a contract, right? And I still have some time left on the contract, but I'm already on the lookout, so I'm having some issues here and there. And on top of all of it, like it's been a bit mental. But yeah, so that's been going on in the background. We had our team meeting yesterday, which was good. Sunny is flying, so she wasn't available to be there, but she's taking care of people for the course. I'm, in the meantime, doing a lot of editing for the course, so I'm literally taking all the images that people have made for the course, for like their individual lessons. I'm going through and editing all of them to be consistent between all the lessons in the course. Mind the name of my YouTube? I had to make a channel real quick. Yeah, it just looks really random. Yeah, happy to have you here. JD Soik Whoopioff New Rock Nufnue. Yeah, happy to have you. But yeah, so stuff is good on our side. It's been busy as always. So working on the course, chipping away, playing a little bit of Factorio like here and there, especially in the evenings. So I'm doing that. I kind of back on the, like the Factorio train, I guess. Yeah, that's a little bit of an update on my side. However, for those who are new here, this is basically my weekly slot where I basically look at people's submissions for feedback. So I'm a senior environment artist in the games industry myself, and I'm on a mission to help other people become environment artists as well. So what you'll see today is from our community. So it's people that want to get into the games industry themselves, and let's see if we can help them. I think today we have 14 people. So I tried to do as much prep as I could before the session, but I didn't get through all of it yet. So there will be some back and forth as well. But yeah, what about let's get things on the road. Oh, final thing that I want to say, if you are new, feel free to ask any questions, whether it be about like games industry, how you can get in it, like environment art, your personal projects. Like, feel free. Obviously, I can't look at your personal project on the fly because I'm busy with the community feedback. But if you have any like generic questions, feel free to throw them in there, and then we can definitely discuss it. That would be lovely. Or yeah, if you just have any questions about industry shenanigans or want to bring up like any news, that would be cool as well. Then we can chat about it. Let's have a look though. Let me switch on over and let's get this show on the road. You're wearing the same t-shirt. Hey! Good to see you here, Joe. I have not played Death Stranding 2. It's not my type of game. I don't know. I'm more into like indie games these days, honestly. I like what I do like about like the big AAA stuff is that it always looks like visually like very appealing. So that's why I like looking at those games and playing them. But I feel, I don't know, I'm more excited about the gameplay mechanics that are happening in like indie games or AA spaces. So that's why I gravitate towards them. So yeah, Oxenfree? No. But isn't that like a pretty old game? Maybe it's the second one that came out, right? I think I played a little bit of the original one. That was quite nice. Yeah, I think the last game that I really played and just was absolutely stuck in was Blueprints. I'm kind of just in this span of I don't really want to think about like games too much in terms of best way to explain this. Like it sounds so silly. I reserve like a special type of bandwidth for my game intake, right? And sometimes I'm in like a certain mood for a certain type of game, and then I just get that game and play it to death for like a week nonstop, right? I'm not in that mindset right now, so I'm just going for like comfort food, which at this point seems to be Factorio, which I'm already getting the feeling of that it's not going to last too much longer, and then I'll probably have a break from games until something pops up again. Did you check on Arc Raiders? No, that is one of those like competitive games. I used to freaking love competitive games. Oh my god, this is gonna age me as well. I used to be heavy into competitive games, especially from all the games. Crisis 2. Crisis 2 in multiplayer was absolutely chaotic, and I had so much fun playing that. Up until a certain point where I don't know if this was the official leaderboard from the world or whatever. There was a site that was tracking like how you were doing in the world, and I was getting up to a place where I was like breaking like 500 in the world, So take from that what you will. I used to play like Battlefield and all those games like extensively, like daily with friends, and it was getting like really, really good at that. But at a certain point, like it's a bit exhausting, you know? It feels like with competitive games, you're either in it or you're not. Like I don't have like I can't really play competitive games as like a casual thing. Where the hell is Crisis 4 anyway? I think they canceled it, no? I think Crytek went through like a round of layoffs like a while back and maybe canceled Crisis 4. Not too sure about that because they have the Hunt Showdown, right? Which is now from the outside looking in, it seems to be making like good money. So I don't think Crisis 4 is necessarily on the table anymore. Yeah. I might be wrong about that though. So feel free to correct me on that one. How can I share my portfolio for review? This is not a portfolio review, but if you want to share your work, the best way to do that is become a member of our community. And then next week, I'll happily have a look at it. The link is in the description down below. But yeah, going back on Arc Raiders, that game looks really nice. Visually, like really interesting. It runs like a dream as well. And I do love what Embark puts out, and I do love like the structure of the team and like how they're positioning themselves for the future of the industry. So I love that aspect of it, but I've not checked out like Arc Raiders myself. How much would they have gotten from something like Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, which was made in CryEngine? That's a good question, which I do not have the answer to. Because I have no clue how their licensing works at this point. Because like CryEngine, like the original CryEngine, has its tendrils all through the industry. Like a lot of the Ubisoft engines they started out as like branches of CryEngine at a certain point because CryEngine was, I mean, Crysis was the game where everyone was like, oh my god, I need a monster beast to run this thing. And obviously that made an impression on devs as well. Yeah, Lumberyard is like Amazon's spin-off, like Amazon's branch of CryEngine. Have you played the Dyson Sphere program? I did, yeah. I love the simplicity that Factorio offers, and anything above that gets too complicated. Even though I like the idea behind it, right? Where you craft it on multiple planets, but as soon as it gets to that like complex of a scale, it doesn't grab me for the long term. I've tried to play it multiple times, but I just can't get into it. The same for Satisfactory, by the way. Like that added layer of like a third dimension in Satisfactory, to me, kills the whole progression of the game. Like there's always a certain point where I just drop out because it gets too complex. Have we gone past the first solar system? I don't think I even got that far, Connor. So I was saying, just read that the Perfect Dark reboot has been cancelled. What? No way. Is that true? Let's have a look. Because they did show it off, right? Perfect Dark. Dang, okay. Oh. Oh. Of course. Microsoft has canceled. And then also the cancellation of like Rare's project as well, like Everwild. And it was in development for a long time, yeah. And like I loved the visuals of it, of like Perfect Dark. But I can sort of also understand that it's not super gripping in terms of like the setting of it. And it's also that niche of an IP that it's like it's not gonna grab like mass attention. All that being said, though, like, this fucking sucks still. Like, there's nothing gonna change that. Because I always love to play more games rather than less. Oh, that sucks. Yeah. That definitely has to do something with the layoffs, right? Was still in earliest stages of development in 2023, according to one report. Okay. But then came a June 2024 trailer that brought a smile. Ba-bum. Yeah, but both things can be true, right? Like, it can be... So what usually happens in game dev is you have a vertical slice, which is basically, hey, we're going to prototype all the core features and all the visuals, and we're going to set a benchmark. And then you can kind of already push something out with that benchmark in mind, right? You can already be like, hey, here's our cinematic, here's what we're working on, kind of have it go out there. And then you just go and like make the rest of the game, right? So I can't believe Everwild was canceled. It looks so good. Maybe it might come back in the future. I don't think so. I don't think there's the chance of like games coming back from a cancellation. I can't think of one. I can't really think of one. Yeah, so I think the same. Even though I've never played the original one, right? So I think what we're doing now is we are, as an industry, I think we're in this phase of like, hey, making new IPs, really expensive, huge gamble. So they're trying to rely on stuff that already exists, an IP that's already out there, so that they already have like at least a fundamental like market that they can count on, right? Wasn't Dead Island 2 cancelled? It's a good question. I don't know if it was ever cancelled, but it moved developer like 3 or 4 times before it got finished. So I don't know if it ever got cancelled, but oh my god, it did go through the ringer. But it does look pretty. I played it and I do like it. Yeah, unfortunately, I feel like the chance of games coming back is relatively low. Beer is saying, oh, sorry, A. I missed you there. Hi, everyone. Good to see you here, A. Let me see. There was another question as well. Bum bum. Wait, the Dyson Sphere. Oh, Microsoft cuts, and didn't ZeniMax folks just get a deal through? I'm not sure about the deal that you're referring to. If you're talking about like the acquisition from Microsoft, yeah, for sure. It's from the statements that I've read, and I haven't read too many of them. It really reads that they're trying to cut out like the management layers, which not what you will, because they say like, oh, we're trying to get rid of management layers, but then also we're gonna cancel games as well. I don't know. The only hope for a Perfect Dark game is if a new James Bond game does great, because Perfect Dark is technically a spin-off. I don't think that will help though. I think honestly, you kind of have to flip that on its head, and from a business perspective, it's gonna look the opposite, right? Because if you release a game in the same genre, and if you're alone, you get to capture like the majority of the market, right? But if you're then competing with another game, like let's say the James Bond game, then you're fighting for the same market and you have to share that market somehow, right? Or potentially. So like if you look at it from like a business angle, it might prove that the market is still there, but also the timing of it is also like really important, right? So let's follow your reasoning, right? Which I mean, I can see it happening. But let's say the James Bond game comes out, and then for whatever reason, it flops because it doesn't capture an audience, because the audience doesn't care. At that point, Perfect Dark is so far into development that they cannot do anything else than just continue to do it or cancel the project because they can't pivot anymore, right? Which is like the nature of AAA games as well, is that by the time that you actually start making something, you're then talking about a development that is going to take 5, 6, 7 years, if not longer, for a bigger project. Minimax, we're getting a union deal going, so the timing for the layoffs is yeah. Oh yeah, that's unfortunately not unusual for America from like my outsider perspective. They do not like the word unions all too much. Yeah. Yeah, this industry is in a state right now. Oh my god. All right. Thanks for bringing all that up, though. That was interesting to talk about because honestly, there's so much stuff going on that is even hard for me to keep track of all this now. So yeah, thanks for bringing all that up. Didn't even know that like Perfect Dark reboot was scrapped. Because there was a part of me when I saw it, I was like, oh, I do want to go explore that world. You know, it looks pretty. But yeah, dang it. What am I drinking? Celsius apparently, like an energy drink. I just picked something up. Some Celsius fan. Wow. I don't know. First time having it. Let's have a look. So let's try. Let's have a look at some feedback, shall we? Well, enjoy. Oh, thank you. Sponsored ad. Definitely not sponsored. Hashtag no way. Let's have a look. So what is the order that we're gonna do this in? Let's start with Adam. Adam is working on a rock lighthouse. No ad, not sponsored. Thanks for the correction. Appreciate it, McFal. Cool. So Adam is working on this lighthouse. Can you give me some feedback on the lighting? I want the mood to feel lonely but not scary, and I'm going for a slightly stylized lighting. I'm not too sure what that means. You know, slightly stylized lighting. I have no idea because that could be like a whole range of things, right? But in terms of the mood, I was really curious to find like your references because currently it doesn't feel like there is like any reference that I can point to be like, ooh, that is definitely like a lonely type of mood, right? So that was the main thing that I was wondering here. And then I started looking at the environment that you're making. I think it looks really good. I think if you want to emphasize the loneliness of it, what I was thinking about is that we could have like a small light on the top of the lighthouse so that we could indicate that there's like one person living in it, right? And this can be like a light from like a candle or something, right? Just, yeah, something to indicate that there's life, but we don't want to oversell it. Because I feel like you have some lights down here, but they honestly don't really matter in terms of the storytelling or the mood, right? They're a bit more for functionality. So let's say you go in there with a boat and then you can see where you're going. But if you really think about like trying to sell the mood, I would probably put the light like way high up or even in one of those windows. But I would have the window more on this side though, if we're gonna do that. Because then it stands out more, right? So, yeah, I would really look at what indicates loneliness and what indicates isolation. So, yeah, that's the thing that I would definitely look at. And then look for some references, right? Like, what type of lonely mood do you want to convey? Like, have a look at the colors and the composition that's being used in those photographs or those drawings, whatever image you can find. Because that's going to help a lot as well. But yeah, to me, it would almost be the endless wide ocean, and then you just have like a little sign of life, right? That is in my head like how my approach would be to indicate that there's like isolation, like in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by sea, endless sea, like a little tiny hint of light, right? That's what I would approach. Next question is for the topology feedback, because you do want to have topology for vertex blending, right? That is why you went like pretty dense. I will say that you don't need to go that dense for vertex painting. It is completely fine to have way less geometry, and then use multiple masks or textures or whatever on top of your vertex painting, right? Because you don't want to use vertex painting by itself. If you want to have it look good, you always need to blend it with either a mask or a height map or a texture or something like that. Because otherwise it's not going to look good, right? Because otherwise it's just going to be using the geometry, which is always just going to look like a triangulated mess. If we want to have that look good, then we're talking about like a really dense mess to make up for the fact that we don't use it. There is actually a good example. Let me see if I can find it in the list. Who was it by though? Potatoes, I think. Yeah. So even this density for like your vertex paint, it's a little bit on the dense side. Let's say you can easily cut like this stuff in half, and then if you blend your vertex painting with masks and textures, you're gonna have more than enough geometry, especially on such a big surface where we don't really care about the up close information necessarily. We care more about a view from this distance, right? Like obviously if you're going to put the camera closer, it is nice to kind of see like a transition here, but we don't need that transition to be like super detailed because we're not going to be pushing our face into it. Sweet bonus paint for me, hell yeah. So yeah, so that means that we can easily reduce the geometry. You could even get away with like putting out actually might not be enough. Yeah, so what I would do is I would grab these two like loops and then merge them together. That's what I would do. And do that for every other loop, and then you're gonna have like a good density for vertex painting. Because yeah, we don't need all of this stuff. What you can do, and this is like if you want to go into like optimization, you could have the areas where you're gonna have more vertex painting requirements, right? So let's say this area, and then this area. You could make those areas denser and then reduce geometry on the other areas. So like these are the areas where you want to have density. And then the rest of it doesn't matter. But still, you can still reduce it though. Just an indication for further optimization. Yeah. Make sure that you blend your vertex paint with mask, like we discussed already, and then you're gonna have some really good blending going. Yeah. Thanks, Adam. Thank you for sharing your work. Let me see if there's just like a bunch of other updates. So planning to make a lot of small props like buoys and random stuff like a wind vane, a metal scarecrow or something. So my thoughts on that are, if you wanna like you basically need to look at the mood as your guiding light as to what you need to be building, right? If you're talking about like isolation, I think honestly less props on the exterior could be to your benefit, because the only thing that you care about for the exterior is just it's in the middle of nowhere. There's one tiny hint of life, and then you can transition into the interior because there's also an interior attached to this. So you could do those two things together, right? Keep the exterior really simple, and then transition into the interior and showcase like additional signs of that potential loneliness. You know, like make it really personal. That could be interesting. Hello, Marcos. A bit late. I just finished the first day of the new studio I talked about last week. That's awesome. Congratulations, Marcos. I think I saw an update for that on LinkedIn. So, yeah, congratulations. Have fun on the job. And let's see. Route 1 is saying, or asking rather, what are your thoughts on Stop Killing Games? Oh, this whole like fucking drama debacle that is like going on the internet again. Um, I think it's a really good initiative, right? And take this into account. I only know like very surface level stuff about it. I think it's a good initiative to have some sort of legal approach or some sort of structure that kind of forces um companies into a way that they need to support their games long time, or build systems that can then be taken over by like the public, right? So I think to give people the gist of it, there's this petition going around that is actually called Stop Killing Games, which is basically a person that's advocating for, and again, like I don't know if this is 100% correct, but from like my very high level view, it's a person that's advocating for either basically giving or forcing the publishers in giving like multiple options to keep sustaining games, whether that is keep running it on their own server or handing it off to a bunch of passionate developers that are like external or modders or whatever, so that we can keep playing those games. um Honestly, if it's going to be either or, I can guarantee you that a lot of people are going to be modding, because yeah, a company is not going to be able to do that themselves for a long time. Unless it keeps making money, like World of Warcraft, right? And if it makes financial sense, then it's going to do it. Um, but yeah. Connor's saying if you're in the EU, you can sign it. Yeah, that's true. It's probably going to be really easy to find as well. Yeah, I think it's a good initiative. I am just very, I don't know, call me cynical. Why I think it's a good initiative, I don't think it's going to reach like wide adoption or anything like that. Look at what happened with freaking loot boxes, right? Like we had a bunch of traction on it. What really happened with it? Like, oh, now we need to showcase the drop rate of like what's in the loot box, right? But I feel like the whole loot box mechanic and gacha mechanic like just went like way out of hand even after we pushed back on like loot boxes. Again, I'm cynical on this topic, right? That doesn't mean that we shouldn't try to fight the good fight. But yeah, been around the block a couple of times, I think, on this time, on these kind of topics. But yeah, it's the thing that it's just so exhausting sometimes because everything turns into like internet drama now. Which weirdly enough is also to the benefit of the petition, because the petition was really slowing down in terms of traction, and that drama made it like pop up in everyone's feed again. So I don't even know what to think anymore. I mean, that's a really good indication of the state of the world, and especially like algorithms, but we're not gonna go there. Yeah, I'm curious to see if they're gonna make it and what actually is gonna be done. Because I think if we are gonna have legislation like that, I think from all the, well, saying that, I think from all like the governments or like regions that we want to look at, I think the EU is like pretty good with this kind of stuff. Um, But yeah, I was about to say like China has like a bunch of they have like way stricter rules than whatever we can imagine by like a long mile. Which I don't know, there's a lot of debate on that as well. But anyway, it's a whole big topic. And honestly, art man. Because I think at a certain point, what is going to happen is that if we're going to keep driving like monetization up and up and up and up and up, then yes, we're not really talking about monetization, but I'm just like rambling here, I guess. If we're going to keep driving that up, then what's going to happen is that people at a certain point will have their fill and will stop engaging with games, right? And just start looking for a different thing. Yeah. What does everyone else think about it? I don't know. I don't know if people know about this even, like the Stop Killing Games initiative. In the meantime, let's have a look at Alejandra's work. So, where are we? Go. So, officially back from vacation. Hey, welcome back from vacation, Alejandro. First question is, I feel that scene feels more focused and has less emptiness to it. Would you agree? Yeah, totally. I mean, that's also what we discussed last time, right? Like, building it up, making all the blockouts like work, getting all the assets in that are required to make the scene work. That is basically what we're looking for, right? So that we get a good grasp of what is needed to get the scene to a final state. And then the second question is, how much detail should the inside of the bar have? So they kind of tie together. But my broad feedback on that is it depends on how close we're gonna get. So that would be the first point. Like, because if we're gonna push the camera in really close, then we're gonna need a lot more detail than if we have a camera that is gonna be like a bit more distant, right? So it all depends on that. Like, how do you think about presenting the work? And because that is gonna drive how much you have to make, so to speak. And that's basically what I said here, right? Like, you need to make what's needed to support the shots that you want to have. If you're gonna go really close with a camera, you're gonna have to make a lot of stuff for it. So there's a couple of things. If we go to this, I just noticed this now. I kind of want to point it out. You have train tracks going here. We need to have this building make sense as to what it was before it got turned into a bar, right? Because what you need to look at is they took a shell of a building that still has the functionality of what the building was beforehand built into it. What I mean by that is, let's say this is a tram depot, right? So a tram depot is going to be big. It's going to have like multiple tracks going into it. It might even have like one of those really cool like rotational devices where you can rotate a tram to go in and out. Like that kind of stuff. Like you kind of want to recognize the building that it was before and how the new people kind of built around that infrastructure, right? That gives it like a layer of history, and it's going to make for like a more interesting scene to be looking at. So long story short, I'm just going to call it retaining your visual history. Because right now, we have these tracks going into a building that is a bar, and it's like, huh? Why are these tracks just randomly going into a bar? Like, this doesn't make sense, right? So it would be cool to have tracks continue along, and then maybe there's like a bigger barn door or something like that over here, where it kind of makes sense that this could at some point have been a door that's used to have like trams go in and out of this, right? But then we're kind of marrying the two ideas, because right now just one ends and the other begins, where we kind of need to integrate them. Yeah. And then for the bar to work, I would have a look at, first of all, the camera. That's a good point, actually, Rusty Bread. That's a good point. So the tracks into the building are really, really sharp as well. That is a great point. So yeah, we want to definitely smoothen the curve as well. Because usually these big vehicles, they have a wide turning angle. So you kind of want to have something that almost like starts from like way earlier, kind of moves into it. Again, we're gonna put like an exclamation mark reference. Super important. Validate everything that you do by just a quick bit of ref. Gonna help you a lot. Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Rusty Brett. That's a great point. So yeah, what I was gonna say is, for the second point, like the detail inside of the bar, usually the way that this works is, one, we want to figure out where the cameras are gonna be, right? So that's step one. And then based on the camera, then we can do a detail block out. Because let's say this is a camera that we're going to need. This is going to need a lot more stuff in it, right? So, yeah, I'm expecting if we want to sell the idea of a bar, like, we're going to have to do a lot of work. Like, if you want to really make this like look really, really cool. Because I'm thinking you get some indications of like, oh, they're just building it up from the ground and they have like a bunch of like random stuff. What I'm thinking then is like, okay, let's really drive that to like the next level, right? So maybe they took some like these old struts that they have and they just used them as like support beams. They have like a bunch of lights around the whole place, which can help like light up the place. Really cool. Obviously, we want to have some sort of like booze and all that kind of stuff there. Want to have like some cups here. Do the same thing over here as well. Maybe this is like a little bit of storage where we have, let's say, there's like a bunch of like beer crates, right? And then we have like the beer crates like connected to like the tap or something like that. Right? But this place is going to need a lot of work. If we want to make this look cool and we want to make this look unique, it's going to require a lot of work, honestly. And then we can play with like the corrugated metal, kind of start dressing everything up a little bit, kind of make sense of all that stuff. It's going to look really cool, but will require a lot of work. Right? And we're giving it a lot of identity as we're doing it. Yeah. Have a think about that. Because yeah, if you want to make this interesting, we need to do a lot more work, right? And I did like a super quick sketch, but we want to integrate more bar. Like basically the theme of a bar is missing, right? The only thing that's currently somewhat hinting is that we have the bar itself, right? And we have some tables. But it feels very generic bar type, right? So what you have to do is you have to define what kind of bar it is. Right? So we need to add that identity into the space. But again, do this first, right? This is really important because if we're going to have a camera that is only going to be at this distance, we do not even need to do all this stuff to the same level of detail that we would otherwise need to do if we're going to retain this camera angle, right? Cool. Thanks, Alejandro. Thanks for sharing your work. Move on to the next one. There's a couple of people jumping in. Hello, Hadzino. I think it's important to start creating an idea where your eyes lead in the composition. He would really need to make a train track or the lighting really good or create a cool scenario. Yeah, I think there's definitely like work for improvement there. The train tracks is basically what we did last time, right? But it can definitely be improved because now what we have, if we can open it back up just really quickly, what we have is we have leading lines kind of working from like this aspect, right? But if we get to this composition, like okay, we went from like macro focus, right? So that means we kind of know where to focus in the big space. Now, if we look at this screenshot, where do you want us to focus now, right? Because for every area that we do, like the closer that we get to something, usually the more personal things become. So that could be something to lean into when you're doing this screenshot. Yeah. Good point. Good point. Right. There was additional comments on the whole stop killing games thing. I think so. Connor is saying I think there's also a thing that addresses ownership. So like how we're technically leasing our games and whatever legal BS. Yeah, see, that is a part that I don't really know too much about, but they kind of go hand in hand, right? Because let's say yeah. But it's basically everything in our economy, like to take like the broadest thing that I can think of, is kind of going that direction though. Oh, lost our camera. Happened there. Batteries. Look at that. But yeah, anyway, we can continue without the camera for a little bit. Yeah, the entire economy is kind of moving towards that, right? Like if you think about Spotify, they're shutting me down for speaking the truth. No. So yeah, think about Spotify. Like there's so much stuff that we just like don't own and we give away for free and like, all that kind of stuff. Like it shouldn't be that way, but it kind of feels like everything is that, right? And like games is just like the latest thing. Even though I don't agree with it, right? I have a lot of physical like games still in my drawer, but it also feels like convenience is always gonna trump like this movement of like, oh, I want to own physical games. Because are you willing to pay more as well for them then? There's gonna be a minority that's gonna say yes, but I think the majority of people are just gonna be like, oh no, I don't want to pay like $100 for like my game, right? Because the interesting thing is that there's like a huge thing going on in the background where marketplaces like Steam, for example, they're still taking the cut that is basically determined by having to physically print games, right? I think it's like a 30% cut or something like that. And that was determined because of the margins that were around when we had to physically print games. That is no longer there. So that means that we can cut out like all the distribution costs and forward that to the consumer, right? At least you would think so. But a lot of places are not doing that. So yeah, there's like a whole bunch of conversations going on here. Just in that space by itself. Yeah, I don't know too much about it though, like about like the ownership thing, because yeah, didn't Epic provide the better rate and still no one uses their market? Well, here's the thing though, like it's not an immediate thing, right? And I think Epic is playing the long game because they're in it for the long haul, right? From what I can tell, Epic is making this transition more towards user-generated content and is also like becoming really, really attractive for publishers to have their game on their platform. I don't know the terms again, but I was really surprised seeing them throw out that you could basically, correct me if I'm wrong, I think you could keep like all the revenue if you published back catalog items on Steam, not on Steam, on Epic Games. Right? So that is like super cool. Instead of looking at like another space where like let's take a random example, right? Like Ubisoft having to publish their games on like Steam or something like that to reach like a wider audience, but then they also need to pay like Steam, like I don't know, the 30% cut that they have to pay. Whereas like Epic Games, you don't have to do any of that, right? You can just publish it there. For back catalog games, I think. For newer games, you still pay like a certain rate, right? But even that rate was like really affordable, I think, comparatively. So what they're doing is really just trying to undercut the market and just in the long term, like make Epic Games like the thing that is really gonna yeah, especially newer people, gonna attract those people towards that platform. And I think on a long enough horizon, that might happen. But obviously, Steam is gonna respond to that as well, right? So it's gonna be interesting to see how that competition is gonna be playing out. Because yeah, I'm personally also not keen on using Epic Games because it's still clunky. It's kind of annoying to use. Like, I don't know. Like, I still prefer Steam. But I think there's going to be a generation that might think opposite of that, right? Because I grew up with Steam and using it for such a long time. Yeah. Right, want to say, and I only use it for the free stuff. Yeah, I think a lot of people do. Yeah, I only use it for Unreal Engine. I don't even grab the free stuff because I know that I'm never going to play it anyway. It's the same with like the marketplace content, right? That you get for free. I think in the beginning I claimed 1 or 2 things, never opened it, and I was like, okay, I'm never going to do that again. It's kind of pointless. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what's going to happen. I think overall though, competition in the space is really good. Because what is going to happen is that now we have a lot of competition in this space, right? Like Xbox Game Pass and Steam, like the marketplace is kind of being threatened by that like slightly as well. And there's a lot of competition going on in the space. So I do like what's going on as a consumer. That's exciting. Cool. Big Mike is making some cables. So let's have a look at these cables. Also, as a reminder, no, my camera is dead, but if we have new people jumping into the chat, feel free to ask any questions about game development, environment art, or just any general career advice. I would love to help out. Yeah, because I work in games myself, so feel free to. Cool. Big Mike is working on some cables. So let's see. So Big Mike has 2 concerns. The color and the proportion of the big and the small cable. The color being perhaps too saturated. The balance between the big and the small cable might not be quite right. If you have any comments or feedback, I would greatly appreciate it. So, I don't really mind the size difference too much. I think what could be interesting is if you wanted to clear that up or make it a little bit more clear to read, what you could do is cluster the smaller cables together and kind of have less of the big cables so that there's a clearer shape or like size separation between the two, right? Because there is a certain element that is like, if we were to do like a quick sketch here, there's like a certain element where what's currently happening is that is sort of happening, right? There is some variation in the cables, but it's not enough. What we could do instead is we could really drive that to be a bit more specific, right? Where you have like a couple of smaller cables and like a really big one, a medium one, like a couple of small ones again. Right? And that is obviously, you would still make them curvy and all that kind of stuff too. But we can go from something that feels a little bit more chaotic to a thing that feels like a little bit more clean to read. Another thing that I'll bring up, and I'm kind of skipping ahead here, but since we're kind of zooming into this, one thing that I would really look at is how to solve this issue. The issue that I'm talking about is the stacking and the intersecting between cables needs to be a little bit cleaner than it is currently. And I know that this is a really difficult thing to solve because, I mean, it's annoying when you ever try to work with like intersecting things, like they just go all over the place, right? I would still look at that because that is what currently is somewhat annoying to look at. You can kind of see that it's like there's cables going on top of cables, but they don't feel like cables. They almost feel like I guess the best way to describe it is like those water hoses, but they're like halfly deflated. So there's like a little bit of water in it, but they're kind of partially deflated. But that's not what you're going for, right? You kind of want to have a clearer distinction between those cables. So for example, here, this is literally just like this kind of a shape, where you would expect it to be that kind of a shape, right? So Apu is asking, can you please share a quick workflow for making these kind of materials? Honestly, no. I think it's going to be way more useful for you to just look at YouTube, honestly. And then I know that sounds like in your face, but having video there and like running you through like all the nodes is going to be way more helpful than me trying to explain it with like just drawing. So yeah. Going back to like the stacking issue that we're talking about, like this is what we have now, right? Where it's just like a bunch of like diglets, I guess, just stacked up on top of each other. What we want though is we want to have cables that are like clearly defined and they cast like a little bit of shadow underneath them and they look like cables, right? So that would be something to look into. You're probably gonna have to try and fake that with like some AO. I think, for example, this guy looks really nice. You know, that reads like a proper cable. The thing to solve then is like where it goes on top of this is, yeah, you kind of expect like a bigger hump to be here, right? So that would definitely have to happen still. But there's some guys like these where it's just, it feels like they're buried in sand, right? Compared to some of the other ones. So that would be something to take care of. Now, jumping backwards onto the first point of the actual colors and the desaturation, is... Sorry, let's have a look. So the difficult part is I think you can't make the gaps where they overlap, so I think it will always look like they blend together a little bit. Yeah, I think a little bit is fine, right? I honestly think that this example here is actually not too bad. I do not mind this example at all. I think it's where it kind of gets to... Let's see if we can get like a proper... It's just stuff like this, right? Where it just becomes like really messy. Those are like the biggest pain points. So let's say if we figure out like how to make all the cables kind of look more 3D-ish like this one. I honestly really don't care about like the blending because the overall feel is really good, right? Whereas now you have like a bunch of really flat ones that are probably just like a background plane or something like that, right? And then contrasting that with the very heavily 3D ones, which is, there's just a disconnect. Back to the first one. So on the color side, I think I agree with you in terms of the saturation and like how bright they all are. So what usually happens in real life, and I got like a couple of examples here, is that the color has like a certain functionality, right? But the majority of the cables that you'll see, they are just going to be like grayish or black or like a very neutral color, right? And then the ones that are important in cabling, they're going to have a brighter color so that they stand out. This comes with a caveat though. Usually when we do this in the industry, like you want to have the flexibility of using it where it needs to be used, right? So let's say we're gonna pop this on some like flat planes in the back behind some like grading or something like that. We want that to be neutral. But then if you have a very important section, or you want to have like a color accent scene and you want this texture for it, then it's good to have the brighter colored one. So it's kind of one of those cases where you could potentially combine both of them. So like have the majority of them black or gray or white or a very, very neutral color, and then have a couple of them standing out. It's almost like you need to flip the way that the colors are done now, maybe with a slight couple of tweaks. Because we have the black ones in the middle, but yeah, the rest is just vying for our attention too much. So maybe what you could try is flipping them from like a color perspective, right? Make the majority of them semi-neutral. A rope over edge gang. Yellow paint is out. Oh shit. Like yellow paint showing where you can climb stuff. Oh god. I mean, that is an example. And a lot of games do this, by the way. Some more subtle than other ones, you know? But it is a good tool. It is a good tool because I can guarantee you, if you don't do it, a lot of people are not going to know where to go. A really interesting thing for like slight deviation for the yellow paint discussion, right? Is that there is testing behind this. There is testing. Like they know from like user testing that the paint color wasn't bright enough or stuff like that. So yeah, it's very data driven. But yeah, so I added these here. Usage usually determines the color, right? In your case, I could definitely see you experimenting with using more neutral colors as the base and then adding pops of color on top of it to kind of create like more interesting section. Because right now it does look really chaotic, but again, it might work for the type of environment that you want to go for, right? I'm just gonna name two random games. Let's say you're in like a spaceship in Star Citizen, right? You do not want to use this texture unless you're in like a bare bones mechanical like spaceship or something like that, right? But it's gonna be too chaotic. However, this would match perfectly in a world like the Ascent, for example, where it's all chaos. Yeah, just everything looks chaotic. Like this would fit in right well. So, yeah. Cool, but thank you so much for sharing this cool material though, Mike. I mean, it looks good. With those tweaks that we discussed, I think you can be like even better. But I really like the feeling of it already. And even to where you got it now, I know that you had to do like a lot of annoying work to get it here. So, great stuff. Oh, 3D art is coming in. There's been advancements in AI being able to create detailed 3D models from an image. So what should I do? I'm considering giving up on becoming a 3D artist because of AI, and I don't want to waste time on it sometimes. So I don't know who said this, but there's a whole bunch of people basically saying it along the same kind of lines. It's more about the skills that you learn. So 3D modeling, texturing, all that kind of stuff, like the whole pipeline basically. It's not about those skills by themselves, but it's also about the skills that you learn along the way, like artistic insight, composition, art fundamentals, all that kind of stuff is going to really help you with anything that you want to do visually. Like literally anything. So I would rather, I mean, I'm doing this myself, right? Like well, first of all, I think that the AI stuff was here before OpenAI. Like NVIDIA was working on their own in-house models for a long time. The same was said about like a bunch of other tools. I don't want to go into it again. But I do not believe that the changes that we're going to be seeing are as quick as they pretend that they're going to be. I think there's a whole bunch of like wish-washy because we have the big money and yeah, We'll see. But to be honest, it's up to you. I think so I was talking, when I was listening to like a YouTube video talking about just 3D art and like AI and all that kind of stuff in general, but it was more high level. And I think what they brought up is that throughout the years there's been so many changes in like game art specifically, that if you're afraid of change, I don't think this is the industry for you necessarily, because even in my short time, relatively short time working in it, so much has changed. Like PBR, Nanite, the whole pipeline got overhauled. Like I'm using all the programs that I used in the beginning when I was getting into it. I don't use them anymore. I use a completely different suite of tools now. Like they all changed, all of them. So I don't know. It's hard for me to make a decision for you sometimes, or for other people. I just know for myself that I'm still going to be doing 3D, or I'm going to be doing visual arts, because that's what I love to do. I'm in it. Hello, Zayad. Welcome. Yeah, I'm doing good. Thank you so much. Asking. Pop down as well. Mike is going to make a post with the adjustments once I implement them. Awesome. Yeah, feel free to tag yourself as Whip Wednesday again, Mike, once you have done those changes. That would be good. Yeah, great stuff, man. Great stuff. Just had food. I'm stuffed. Oh, nice. What did you have? We do need to make some haste, though, because there's still a lot of people going. So let's see. Bodie is next. So Bodie is asking a couple of questions. What do you think about the vertex paint in the image that stares at the floor? I'm never quite sure what to paint. So I added some green for algae, lighten up the wood where I mostly walked on, and added some wet spots. Is everything too subtle? So I added a couple of images here. So first one on the algae growth. Look at how this looks. Like there's a clear definition between the pattern of the wood and the pattern of the algae, right? There's a nice definition in terms of like roughness variation as well. Light bumpiness, like normal stuff. So yeah, go with the texture. Like you're gonna need that texture to actually make it feel like it's gonna be on there. Because right now you're only changing the color. Don't really see potentially the roughness as well. It's somewhat hard to tell. But I don't think that's gonna be enough. So you kind of want to go for something more like this, and then just tone it down in the same sort of color range that you're looking for. And so yours is probably going to be darker. And then the same thing for the wood as well. So if you look at this wood, what I really like is like the roughness, right? You can see that there's like a clear variation between like the wet spots and the dry spots, which is really nice. It is less noticeable. It's not even that noticeable in your case. So we can definitely drive the separation between the wet and the dry, right? Obviously, this is also going to depend on lighting and camera angle and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, will be good. I added like two references here for you that are, I mean, they're the quickest ones that I could find, but I think they do a good job of explaining what would be cool to have on there. Let's see. Because yeah, like you're saying, I think everything is just way too subtle. I think it's not necessarily about the subtlety. I think it's about it not feeling like algae that is the problem. That is the thing that is really missing, right? It just feels like there's some like green discoloration, but it doesn't feel like algae. So we need to get some texture. Cool. And then for feedback on the bottles, the chest, and the coffin as well. We're gonna go through this really quickly. I love the bottles. The bottles look really good. I mean, if you just look at like the attention to detail, like on the roughness, looks really good. Honestly, These bottles are looking like really great. We got some nice roughness variation. It's really good. The coffin could potentially use like a same sort of treatment where you have like a more distinct variation between roughness areas, right? Almost like you could have an indication of where people are touching it, right? Like on the handles or like where they're like resting some stuff on it, and then you have like areas that are like in the crevices that are like less shiny. So that could be good. I think the wood itself is decent. I think if we're going for these close-up shots, what I really want to see is I want to see like more variation, like the end. It is worth just modeling that in, especially for some of these planks. What you could do is have a set of cinematic planks. These are basically, this is a thing that we do in the industry as well, where we call things cinematic when we need to be able to see them up close, and they need like an additional level of detail that we don't have in our game assets. So for shots like this, where you're gonna go like zoom in really close, I want to see that additional detail, like especially on silhouettes. I kind of want to see like more silhouette changes instead of it just being like punk, punk. We need to change it from like that silhouette to silhouette, like nice and tasty. And that's gonna help a lot as well. Gonna really sell that feeling. And then you can do the same thing with the silhouette here by just adding like knots and like little sections. Yeah. I would have like a set of planks, or maybe if this is like an asset, like just, yeah, spend a little bit more time for that close-up shot. Make it look nice. I'm doing a whole bunch of hand gestures with my camera off. Yeah, these like jugs, they look really good. They look super nice. So well done. Those. Awesome. Cool. Let's see. Where are we? And you really dislike your buildings. Okay. I feel like they're a total mess, especially after I tilted them and they still look blocky. Do you have any tips on how to improve them, or should I leave them? So good question. What I would do is a combination of both. So I would focus your attention to the building that requires the most attention. And I basically want to give you two options. So if we focus on this building, we have to make that look good, because that building is going to be in the foreground. You're going to have to do a good job on that. So, yeah, you can get away with some like additional vertex painting. I honestly also don't think that this building requires a lot more work to like really feel good. There's certain areas where you can definitely get more bang for your buck, like these areas having like the brickwork come out and stuff. That is gonna help. And doing the same. Maybe have like a couple of like rope assets that are more unique for these assets, instead of like just having a rope going all the way around. It would be cool to have, yeah, just like a couple of more like unique assets that kind of go like all the way around. Because this is like a lightweight thing, right? You already have the trim, so the only thing you have to do is just blender, spline, and you're done, right? Like make a cool looking spline, and you got like real interest in that building. So I was asking who made this. It's Bodie. So Bodie has made it. Bodie is doing some kick-ass work. Bodie is in the chat as well. Yeah, so awesome stuff, Bodie. What I was gonna say though, if you're already feeling exhausted, as an artist, what I love about working as an artist is that we have the choice. We have this thing that's called creativity, right? Which is like a fucking superpower. And what we can do is, if we're exhausted by something, I usually think about it in two ways. Like I work on something else and I hope that I get inspiration back or I get the motivation back to work on it, right? So basically push it back, and whenever I need to work on it, then I'll work on it. However, there's an option B as well, and that's be creative. So what we can do in this case is we know that we need to focus on the front building. There's no way around it. But what we can do with the buildings in the back is just cover them up, right? Like work with the lighting, work with fog, kind of cover them up. Maybe even, I don't know, work with some camera effects, something like that. We can just, I don't know, cut out a lot of work for ourselves by just obfuscating things in the back, right? Because also sometimes it could be nice to keep pushing, but other times it's also, what's the point? Because it is in the background and I don't think it's necessarily like 100% needed anyway, especially because, yeah, I know, Zayad. I was just turning it on again because the battery is dead. Let's see. Okay, on 2 bars. Add a shitload of fog. Yeah, generally, like, I mean, that could work. That could be an option. But yeah, there are other options as well. Maybe even repurposing the building in the front in some way so that you can just like make an easier job of the buildings in the back. I don't know. There's a bunch of options. Or, I don't know, you have a bunch of scaffolding. Maybe just the building that you hate, just throw a bunch of scaffolding against it. Like throw a bunch of assets on it, and then they're working on it, you know? They're working on it. I always think about it that I have to show it in the breakdown. Well, here's the thing though. Like with a breakdown on your portfolio, you have full control over it, right? And the way that I look about it is that you only show the strongest point of that piece. And in this case, if you spend a lot of time working on the building in the foreground, show that building off. But no one's going to care if you then don't show like another building and another building, right? It's like the same thing if we simplify this. If you have like 100 assets, like I don't care seeing all 100 assets. I just want to see like the best asset, because the only thing that I care about is if it's technically well executed and if you know what you're doing with your textures, and if it's like just really interesting. Like that's all I care about. I don't care about the volume of assets, because also in a context of an actual production environment, this is going to happen the same thing, right? Like you're going to have to focus on things that are more important than things that are going to be less important. So it is actually showcasing that, hey, I focused all my attention on the building that's going to be most important for camera, and the rest of it, you know, they kind of took a backseat. But the benefit of your portfolio is you don't have to say any of them. Just show this kick-ass building, and it's like, cool, they know what they're doing. It's awesome. So I hope that helped. Quality above all else, that's the most important thing I've ever heard for game art. Well, here's the thing though, it's not quality. Well, so yes. First of all, yes. Quality is the most important thing. But like what I was just explaining is that you can be smart in the way that you present that quality to the person that you want to present it to, right? Because, for example, in this case, not everything needs to be at the same quality level, because I don't care about like a barrel that's used in the back of that building. Like, I don't care. I don't have barrel. Yeah. It's a combination of working smart and hard, right? Whereas before I used to say like work smart, not hard. But then I heard some people disagree with it, and I think I agree with them as well. You need a bit of both. Pick your battles and prioritize. Yep. Or as the army would say, prioritize and execute, you know? Same principle. Like just go from I usually equate this to like sculpting, right? You wanna go for the big shapes first, then go for the medium ones, and then go for like the details. You don't need to make all the details. That's why I think this is honestly the biggest thing that I've learned from concept art. If you look at well executed concept art, not marketing art, right? But concept art, they have this beautiful way of focusing your attention to the right piece or like the right section of the canvas by painting more or less. So you'll usually see that like the stuff that they want you to focus on is like pretty detailed, and then the rest of it could even be brushstrokes. But it's because they're so smart in where they force you out to look that it's beautifully executed. Let's have a look at some questions because there's quite a lot of them. So video game development. I don't know if you are still here, but let me go through some of the questions. How long until I might get a job in the video games industry? That is really hard to determine for me without seeing like the full context, right? Because context is super important. When I make a good, decent portfolio, like how long will it take? Years? Well, no, if you have like a good, decent portfolio, then you can get in immediately. But it all depends on the timing and what you think a good, decent portfolio is, right? If you can't wait for too long and want to get into the video games industry as an environment artist as fast as possible, I think that's the wrong approach. I don't think that's going to work. Because what is going to happen, and this happens to everyone, is that it is hard. Like you have to learn a ton of stuff about like environment art to actually be at like a hireable level. I mean, most people, for example, I know a lot of people that went to uni for 4 years and then did like 1 or 2 years on top of that to then finally get into the, right? Yeah, there's so many things to learn. You can't get in quick. I think, yeah. And I hate saying that because I'm impatient. But if you want to get in quick, you're going to have to work freaking hard. Like, that's what I had to realize over time as well. It's not like I realized that in the beginning, but I realized that more and more over time through uni. I put in a shit ton of work. Let's have a look at some other questions. In relation to AI, I've seen 3D modeling doesn't really produce optimized and easily editable models. Oh, the AI stuff that I used, like, honestly, was horrendous. Like, for 3D modeling. Like, all the ones that are like, oh my god, this is gonna destroy 3D art. Like, I tried them, and then it's just like, ooh, really? I don't see it. And then also, on top of that, David, I think there's a point of, like, they are really good at spitting out, like, generic looking, just like remeshed kind of things, but that is not what we're looking for in video games. Like the meshes and the assets that we create for video game development are so complex and so specific that, yeah, it's not gonna happen. Or if it's happening, like it's gonna be so far in the distance that we have to be worried about like a bunch of other stuff. And that's why I'm kind of turning around and I'm trying to be, oh, this is going to be like a huge tangent, I feel. I'll keep it quick. I'm trying to double down on creativity and what creativity means. So what I want to do instead is, instead of making production ready work, I want to go back to the drawing board and see how I can make like new work or different things, or I don't know, build the foundations of a new IP or something like that. Because it looks for me in the long term that is where, even if we completely ignore AI, like just tools by themselves are going to be more open, more easy to use, so that more people can use. But what is really going to make a difference is how creative you can be with them, right? Because if you don't have like creativity, like the tool is only like a multiplier on top of it. Yeah. Let's see what else is there. Fear is asking, Do you think it's important for environment artists to have strong modeling skills? Yeah. Yep. You don't need to be as good as an asset artist, but you need to have strong modeling skills. Because if you don't have strong modeling skills, you're not an environment artist, you are a level artist. Level artists are usually the people that only do set dressing. And in my personal opinion, that is too fragile of a skill set to only depend upon. Plus also even level artists, they have to know modeling. But if you were to really simplify it, like that's the difference. You could also play League of Legends, and then everything else is super fun. Oh my god. Justine, welcome. Good to see you. Hi. Any advice for choosing concepts to base environment art pieces on? Where to look? A lot of concepts now use 3D first and then are painted over. Is this kind of concept not wise to choose? No, I think that could definitely work. I think having like a 3D base could actually help with proportions and perspective more than traditional 2D paints could. It just depends on how much they did on top of it. So I don't think there's anything bad with using like a 3D base concept. When it comes to picking your environments, I would go to ArtStation. I think that's still like the best platform to get inspired by this stuff. And then just see what you gravitate towards, right? And there's actually, if you go to our YouTube channel, there's a video that I did talking about like how to start your environment. So have a look at that. It's in the live section. You might have to scroll down a little, but that's going to help you a lot. You got to be patient and disciplined for environment art. It's not going to be a speed run. Nope, it is not. I think you're going to be disappointed if you want to get into this. I'm here in Portugal. Is it possible to get a job abroad by working remotely? It's less and less likely. I think remote jobs are A, very scarce, and B, usually not for juniors. So it's highly unlikely that you're gonna get like a remote working job from Portugal. You might have to relocate that job. At the school I went to, a bunch of them already studied an intern before studying for 2 years again. I mean, I get it. Yeah. Hmm. Working from Kaidim today, I saw AI is getting really good, especially in terms of assisting 3D modeling. Assets that usually take 6 hours can be done in less. Yeah, I still have my reservations though. Because yeah, I don't even want to go into it, honestly. A transition from prop generalist to environment art. What knowledge do you think is important? Well, from generalist, it's completely different towards prop, right? Because generalist is like I do everything, and prop is like hyper specialized. So they're coming at it from like both ends of the spectrum. For if you're transitioning from prop, it's yeah, anything that works modular. So what I mean by that is trim sheets, addable textures, more flexible workflows, all that kind of stuff. If you want to transition into environment art. With a generalist, it's hard to tell because that is so broad that basically environment artists are somewhat the generalists, so that's the way that I see them, like the generalist of the world side. Mm-mm. What is the most impressive game you ever saw or matched your taste? The most impressive game environment. I don't know, because it's hard. It's hard to have that one thing that really stands out. You know, but it's hard for me to tell really. Think because, for example, I'll give a couple of examples, right? So Destiny 2, really, really, really great for art fundamentals. I feel that they do a really good job at translating art fundamentals into their game. Like composition, color-wise. Like it's a stunning game when it comes to like art fundamentals. So yeah, that's like one example. Then for set dressing, right? If we're talking about like visual storytelling and building worlds, like I mean, Ubisoft still does like such a good job at that. Especially all the Assassin's Creed games, they look so good. Um, and also the tech behind it as well is kind of really interesting. Um, but yeah, the last game that I was really stunned by, I don't remember actually. I do really want to check out Shadows though, like Assassin's Creed Shadows, because that looks really beautiful. Going back to the creativity from earlier, I never thought of myself as being very creative or a good problem solver, but it's something I'm gonna learn no matter what. Yeah. The most impressive game environment is Ordag from Doom Eternal. I haven't played Doom Eternal. No. I need to check that out then. Video game development is asking, should I focus more on set dressing for my environment art portfolio? Um, you should do a lot more than just set dressing. You should be building stuff yourself and then using that in your set dressing, right? So let's say if you're doing a diorama, which I recommend, is just a small scene with like let's say 5 assets. It's a good trial for making assets that are visually consistent but also tell a story. Look it up. It's insane how good it looks. Let me have a look then. Let's have a look. Here's the thing though, like images are never gonna do this justice. Because yeah, I mean, I don't know if this is the actual thing. It looks great, but there's still a disconnect happening between what I'm seeing on the screen and if I was to actually be there. Oh, actually, I have an example. So Space Marine 2. That was a game where I was like constantly just being like, oh my god, it looks so sick. Probably like the most recent game that I played. The most recent AAA game. How small is a diorama? How long is a piece of string? It's kind of hard to answer that, right? Like you can make a diorama as small as you want. Like I literally, the example that I gave, for example, 3 assets on a table is a diorama, right? A corner of a room could be a diorama. But also like bigger room with like a backdrop could also be a diorama. So yeah, there's some good examples on ArtStation. If you look up diorama, there's going to be some good examples of what you can. There's even I think a free ArtStation course by Jasmine Habazai Fekri, who talks about like creating a diorama, and I think that's a good example for the size that I'm talking. Last question before we move on is, but feel free to keep asking questions and we'll weave them in. Is foliage art usually a specific role, or is it covered by environment art? Oh no, it's hyper specific. It is really specific. It is so specific that a lot of studios actually struggle finding like a foliage artist. For example, I was a foliage artist for a while, like at my first job at Frontier. And I know that they're kind of still looking for someone, even though they've had multiple people, but like it's such a specialized role that people kind of just like go in and out, or you have to have such a knack for foliage that is what. Cool, let's have a look here. Carabao. That is the Discord name. So let's have a look here, and let's change the music as well. Jesus, getting in. Chill. So, let's have a look here. A couple of points to begin with. Really, really a lovely environment. Awesome. Great stuff. You would like to get some feedback on what I could tweak and add to the scene to perhaps make it more reminiscent concept. Cool. So we have the concept up here, and then we have the your part up here, or like down here. The first thing that I did is a quick thing to test is always doing just like the little squint test, you know, squinting or blurring thing, right? Because it allows you, it focuses you less on the detail, and it allows you to focus more on the colors and the fundamental stuff, right? So there's like a couple of things that we can immediately see is that your interpretation leans more towards colder, right? So we have more colder colors, more purples and blues compared to what we see up here, where we have the warm browns and the lights that are more saturated come in, and they really help add a richer kind of color depth. That's what we can kind of see here. So I pointed out that like the top picture has like a richer color depth. So yeah, what we can do here is we can introduce like a warmer color in the shadows, and this can just be done with like a little bit of color correction, and then also putting an extra emphasis on like the yellow, and maybe even on the glass of the yellow, because it seems like that pops out a little bit more as well, and slightly saturate all the yellow elements. To give an example of that, I did a quick edit here, and you can kind of see what that does, right? So we're going from the base edit here, which is bluish, and then I'm turning up like the warm tones, and it adds like a layer of like color complexion. Maybe it's a bit too much on the warm side, so it would need to be balanced somehow, right? So kind of push it back a little bit. Say we do it at 60%. You can kind of see, even though it's like very subtle, it brings out a color complexity that was not there before. Hello, Eden. Good to see ya. And then, yeah. So I basically tried out like the list of stuff that I did. Right. It's like I saturated like some of the yellows as well. You can kind of see that they pop out more. We can still do a lot more work with like the glass in the back. So yeah, that would definitely be helpful to kind of push like the glass in the back as well. And then just, yeah, push it a little bit on the warm tones. I think that could be really helpful. And how far you want to push that, that is totally up to you, right? Yeah, you can kind of see it here. The comparison between the two. Should try to replicate at least part of that. Cool. Next thing that I wanted to point out, this is just like something random, but you've got like two perfect areas where you have a beautiful roughness reflection. Those two areas are like prime territory if you want to break that up and add details that like, I don't know, footsteps or shuffles or anything like that. It can be like very subtle stuff, but that can make this stuff, like the reflection, kind of stand out. Because what that does in a very subtle way, if let's say we break up this reflection a little bit, it's gonna give the impression that like all the surfaces in the sea kind of have the same sort of complexion, right? So think about like the conversation that we had before with the chat, where I was basically saying like this is a concept art approach of trying to add detail to your scene without adding all the details in your scene. We can kind of sell it in like a small area, and it gives the impression that the rest of it is more detailed, which is good. It's cheap and it works. So yeah, I just wanted to point that out. Like those two areas are perfect to do like, I don't know, like a little bit of roughness detail or something. Would be perfect. And I think the rest of it honestly comes down to really looking at post-processing, really pushing like the vignette, maybe tweaking the shadows, maybe polishing a little bit on the lights, adding a little bit of bloom, like all those kind of things. that are usually done in post. Like take your time with those, and then just put a bow on it and do the whole presentation. Yeah, not too much more. Yeah, this is great stuff, Eden. I love it. Yeah. Okay, cool. I can do that. Yeah, you can. Sure can. Vera is asking, do you know any environment artists that specialize in sci-fi environments? Only person I can think of is Josh Van Zandt. Oh no, there's like a bunch of them. I can't remember them by name though. Alex Sinichal does like concept design. But he's kind of in between. He's a person that I shouted out last week as well because his design stuff is really great. A bunch of my friends, like they work at CIG on like Star Citizen, or like they work there at some point. They don't really specialize necessarily in sci-fi environments, but they have a lot of experience with them. I think honestly, if you're looking for people to get inspired by, look for the companies that do sci-fi art and see who works at them. Like, that could be good. That's a good source of inspiration. Yeah. Thank you, Eden, for posting your work. That's awesome. Yeah. Time to put a bow on it. Gonna be sick. Gonna be sick. Let's see. Is a long pig. Oh wait, no. Connor is here. Connor. Wait, where are we? There we go. Fatal taters. Fatal potatoes. All right, it's good to see you post your work. Let's have a chat about your piece then. Already got some free paint, you know, so that's for free. You can keep that. This is looking good. You're translating this building, which is good. I like it, like an old industrial style building, like the old windows. I like it. Used to be a barber as well, by the looks of it. Or is it a barber? I guess it is. Hey, it is. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Let's see at the questions. So my questions are, this seems like a really fun and easily expandable practice method for building facades. Just literally wandering the world hunting for buildings. What would be the best way to structure a portfolio post about that in your... So I'm not sure if you should. Like if you just want to share images about building facades with people, if that is the correct... Oh, lost the mic there. Yeah, for a portfolio piece, I don't think you should. What you should do though, like if you want to put it on social media, if you want to put it on your blog, if you want to do anything like that, that can be good. But your portfolio is purely meant for high quality finished stuff. It's basically, you want to get hired, your portfolio is your flyer that you hand to people, right? It only contains the best stuff. Like the highest quality, best stuff where they want to see the best stuff coming forward. But yeah, social media stuff could be really good. A blog could be good. I would also ask what the goal is. So the reason why I asked what the goal is, I mean, sometimes you don't really have a goal. You just share, right? But like, for example, if it is to just like share cool building facades, or if it is to potentially book or whatever you want to do, right? That's going to determine how you're going to share those things, right? So if you just want to share cool stuff, do it on social media. If you want to just keep it as like a little notebook or like a diary for yourself, a blog will be more appropriate because social media is going to have a wider reach compared to a blog, right? You can do both at the same time as well. Question number 2. I've been avoiding doing buildings, so double checking if I'm in line with modern standards. Is a vert per 0.5 meters accurate? Texture blend pipeline. I mean, the density of your mesh depends on the requirements of the blending, right? if you look at Naughty Dog example, that's basically what I said here. If you cut out like every second line, like every second loop and every second ring, then you're gonna have the same sort of texel density or like the same sort of vertex density Naughty Dog uses for painting their building, right? But there might also be like areas where you need less or you need more. Just adapt kind of on the. Going back to the first point, Connor saying I didn't have a goal. I just saw it and was modeling it before I had the time to think. But I really enjoyed this ref method. Oh, just in terms of ref, I mean, yeah, I have like thousands and thousands and thousands of images that I took on like all the trips that I've done, and I just have my own personal like ref library. So if that's what you're talking about, well, do it. Because honestly, like the best ref that you can have is the one where you are actually on that location, because it's gonna help you understand the proportions of things better. It's gonna help you understand the culture that influences the building style and kind of stuff, right? Like there's so much that you can get from just being there rather than seeing it. Yeah, the closer that you can get, the better. Yeah, thanks for those 2 questions. I hope that answered them. Feel free to have any follow-up questions in the chat as well. But yeah, there's no, I said it here, like there's no rule for this. The best that you can do is just test the requirements that you have for your building specifically, and then just add more if you need more, move if you think it's too dense. But I think as a baseline, just removing every second loop and edge or ring from here would be good, especially on the building itself. But yeah, love to see your post. Lovely. Maybe I was not clear. Pixar from Google Maps. Okay. I'm still not sure. Are you just saying that you would love to post about like, hey, I found this cool little spot on Google Maps and just share it with the world? Is that what you're thinking? In the meantime, let's move on. Yeah, I'm not sure I fully understand Connor. So move on to Long Pig. Long Pig is doing a vintage study. The main question I've started to see, because in previous project I was struggling with lighting a lot. I thought utilizing natural light would give me a good opportunity. However, the window with the directional light shining through has introduced a huge bright area, which distracts from the focal point. The armchair, the lamp, and the table. If I dim the light or rotate it, the room becomes very dark. It shouldn't be though. Like if you have your light coming in here, right? If that is the goal, that shouldn't cause the entire room to go dark, right? Because you still have like bounce light hitting this wall and just like scattering. But that be the case. What you could do there though is play around with some of the parameters that you have. There is number. Hey, that's the one, Will. Thank you so much for popping in. Yeah, indirect lighting intensity. It's like a slider that you have in your directional light that basically increases like the bounce light that you could play around with that. That is just like a slider that you can. That would be something to look at. Yeah. I like to keep the sunset light and the god rays, but the brightness of the window and the darkness of the room, I'm not sure how to balance it. I mean, first of all, what you should do is you want to get your angle correct, right? So the sun rotation needs to be. because that is important for your focal point, right? That is how we're going to focus the attention of the viewer on an area that we want to. So that is going to be hugely important. And then we do a balancing pass. And then if we figure out like, hey, I'm missing my God rays or something like that, then we look at like polishing it up. Because what usually happens is if you rotate the sun in a certain direction, you might lose your God rays, right? Because it is supposed to be at like a directional angle that is like quota as you look, right? But we can fake those though. We can fake God rays. We can have like a little cone mesh that has like a fake God ray on it, like a transparent material. But we can kind of fake that. That is why you focus on the angle first to support the focal point. Then you do like a balancing pass, and then we do polish and additional iterations and all that stuff. This is also polish, but I just wanted to add that in here. You can see that we have like this nice this nice orange light kind of filtering. And it's a nice contrast with like all the blue shadows. So that would be something to think about as well. It comes up fairly regularly with some other people as well. So having that contrast between definitely going to help as well. What is saying, I feel like the albedo would play a big part in helping the lighting as everything's white right now. Yeah, so what is going to happen is if you start filling in the scene and the albedo is going to be darker than the albedo that you have now, or like the base color of the material, it's going to darken the scene, right? Because your light in Unreal, like with Lumen, uses the albedo map to then scatter the color around the scene, right? So let's say if this is like a dark wood, even if you like tweaked your lighting to be perfect, you then add the textures into it, it's going to make it darker again. So that is a good point, something to keep in mind as we're doing iterations. Don't do final lighting until all the base color and the albedo is in on all the surfaces, or is at least representative of the final result. Yeah. Thanks, Will. Love it. Yeah. Quick couple of feedback here. Thanks for posting your work, Long Pig. Love it. Let's see. Who's next? We'll shift you around. Got one. I don't know if we have anyone else in here. I saw Megval in the scene as well. David is here as well. We're shifting some people around. Cool. Thanks, Tim. No worries. Help. In industry, are you allowed to play around with lighting? I tend to think lighting artists know how to do specific lighting instantly. Well, so you're not. But it kind of depends on the setup of the studio, right? Most AAA studios have specific lighting artists that work with them, and their responsibility is lighting. So usually you come in, you make things look pretty, and then you have to wait for lighting art to come in and do a pass. Or sometimes you work in conjunction with each other, you go a bit back and forth, do a couple of iterations. But most of the cases that I've worked with, you build a scene, you do set dressing, you make it look really good, and then lighting comes in, there's a lighting pass after. Video Game Development is asking a question. Is it possible to get a job interview while I'm still in Portugal? If they like my portfolio, maybe they can ask me, okay? Or do they want me to be in their country? Oh, no. You can do a remote interview. And then as you go through like the different stages of the interview, if they ask you, if they make you an offer, right? So if they want to have you in the studio, then they will ask you to relocate. What a lot of companies offer these days is a relocation budget as well. So let's say if you want to move from country to country, most bigger companies, especially, I don't know about smaller ones, they have a budget to help you settle that new country or new city. Yeah, no worries. It's not a dumb question. It's actually a good question. Thanks for it. Adino, let's have a look. We are gonna so overtime with this stuff. It's all right. Good to. Where am I looking? So please let me know if this is a good environment, what I can do better, and I also wanted to know if this is junior level. So we kind of talked a little bit back and forth about this stuff already, right? In private DMs. I think my point is still gonna stand, right? That it's up to you and whatever you want to change to make it look good. Because you do have like a concept, right? The concept was really good in terms of, hey, I would change this, I would make it feel like a certain way. Take the main points from that concept and see if you can. Because yeah, it is a really good overview they did for you. Now, if we're just looking at some of this stuff here, I cannot determine if it's good for like a junior position, because the truth of the matter is that is a decision that gets made by the industry, right? So, for example, I can say, oh, this is not good enough, for example, right? So I can say that this is not good enough to get you a job, which may lead to you losing chances that you might otherwise have had, right? I don't want to put myself in that position necessarily. I think if you want to really test that out, I think you should just like start applying to play and see what they say back. And in the meantime, you still develop your skills and you keep pushing yourself, see what and see what feedback that they have. It's a bigger sample size. I think that's going to keep like a lot more data. Or yeah, talk to like a bunch of other people in a hiring position. Yeah, let's have a look at some of the stuff here. I think what I immediately see is what could be improved is like an attention to detail that is kind of lacking, right? So what I mean by that is I'll point out like a couple of things. For example, this wood paneling is, how is this made? Because that doesn't look like it should look like that in real life. So this means reference, right? There's an indication with this comment that we didn't really look at reference or at the correct reference, right? So that comes down to like how, as an artist, this is really important. Like trying to distill like how something is made and then representing that in 3D. Yeah, this is really important for us. So yeah, this was also represented in the concept art, but this feels like really out of place. It's a matter of thematic consistency. What I mean by that is that you have this old what did you say? Look. Yeah, 1930s, beautiful wooden architecture, and then you have like these metal like cabinets, and it kind of just breaks the cohesion of this, right? Where again, the concept art does a beautiful job of like the overpaint does a beautiful job of fixing that, right? By integrating like more like old wooden wardrobes into the space, which are like more thematic appropriate. For some of these additional shots, like the lighting feels like really flat. And this is relatively easy to fix, right? But it's especially in this one that it really stands out. Because in the other screenshots you have a contrast happening between like the highlights and the shadows, right? Whereas in this one it's just, it feels very samey all across the board. This honestly might be a case for potentially removing it or changing it, right? So let's have a look at some of the other stuff. This is also another example of like attention to detail. I love all these, like the density of the books, but they're really basic, right? So in this case, if you dedicate yourself to making like a book, like a book rack, you have like a lot of books. What I then also want to see is like attention to detail to all the back of the books. They don't need to all be unique, but it just it kind of lacks like a sort of finesse, like a refinement. Usually how that's done is you can just have like an atlas with like a couple of books on it, right? And then you have the flexibility, like a bunch of books. That would be really good. You have some really cool stuff going on as well in the scene. Like I think this scene, like this little set here, could be pretty interesting. There's already like some cool storytelling going on, right? A really quick tip for like any sort of paper that is scattered, like add a bit more geometry to it. So for example, if we have, here we go. So you're already doing the edge at the bottom, right? Which is awesome. What I would do if this is a letter, right? I'm expecting to kind of see, this is exaggerated, right? Just so we get the point across. But I'm kind of imagining that I can still see like the folds of it being in the envelope. And then maybe having like the envelope, like ripped open envelope, like underneath it or something. Right? It's like subtle stuff like that. And you can do the same thing with having like a little corner, just like stuck up some of the pictures. Yeah, sort of like this stuff. Oh, what might actually be the case here is if you want to make some of this stuff look good, we need some sort of like shadowing. So contact shadows, or looking to, and this is a search term, right? So SSAO, which is screen space ambient occlusion, and then Unreal Engine. And that is going to give you like a couple of console commands that is going to give you more rich and detailed shadows. Because especially when it comes to like close-up detail like this, Lumen just doesn't cut it. It can't get to like that granular detail. Right, so looking that up is going to give you like more rich detail, your shadows. Again, this shot could be really cool, but it's just the how is it made of it, right? Like the how is the paneling. That would be something to look at as well. Yeah, that can be applied to like a lot of the spaces, right? Is really having a look at like, oh, how do they construct things? Like how do we have like a ceiling? How does that transition into a wall? How does that wall transition into the paneling? All that kind of stuff could be really cool. Also, and again, it's like tiny stuff, right? But like this frame wouldn't just be like haphazardly in between like those two panels, right? That feels like really awkward. Feels like awkward placement. I want to say in picture frame golden instead of wood to break away from the wood and a different style of the wood. Yeah, I think that's a good shout. Just making something that stands out. Have like a metal tint, like maybe even like an ornamental one. Because you could oh, you can actually use like this material. I don't know if that's unique or not. You could actually do some like subtle storytelling here, right? If you could have picture frames with a normal frame, and then you could have picture frames with a golden frame, hinting at like, oh, this person is more important to them. You can kind of introduce like mini stories. Yeah, a whole bunch of random things. I hope that was helpful. Yeah, like we discussed in DMs as well. Have a look at that overpaint. That overpaint is gold. Someone really took the time and like the effort to make that look really, really good. And I think it's well worth having a look at that over and seeing what you can get out of it. I'll tell a funny story. That tarot card was in my Insta feed, and the card means betrayal. So I created an idea where the deal is going on. Oh, that's cool. Do you think modeling and texturing props for a year to a year and a half before jumping into environment art is a good idea? I can't say. It honestly depends on the quality of modeling and texturing. Because some people get it really quickly. Some people take more time. It depends on interests. It depends on a whole bunch of stuff, right? Yeah, unfortunately, like it's really difficult to like with environment art, or I guess with any sort of like skill that is so broad. It's really hard to really nail down like, oh, this takes like this long, this song. When you say how it's made, how would I show that? Oh no, it's more it's a good question. It's more how this stuff is made in real life. Because right now, if we look at some of the paneling, right? Like where's that screen? This just doesn't look like at all what it is like in real life. So I'll have a quick browse, right? So 1930 wood paneling wall. Let's see. Let's see if we can find something. Oh my god. No. Yeah, okay. Let's grab this one. Nope, that's not the one that I want. Be the image. There we go. Look at that. Right? And so we can start distilling this into like individual components where we can be like, okay, so they have like this pillar piece. It's cool. They have this pillar. They have the pillar with the ornament up top. They have like a little trim at the bottom. And then the whole base kind of has like a trim. And then you have the wood paneling itself. Right? But it's surrounded by a frame. We kind of have this frame that goes around the whole thing. And then you have the interior that is just like wood panel. And you have like this trim at the top as well. And then you have like a smaller trim up here. So you can quickly see that like it is constructed in a way where it kind of makes sense. Right? So, and this applies to your wall, this applies to these guys, this applies to the chair, the desk, like all that kind of stuff. You can apply that to everything. Really distilling down, like, okay, this pillar is made out of like a little ledge here with like a little ornamental section here. Little like horizontal area here. Then we have like these vertical sections, which are like a really nice detail. And then we have like this ornamental piece on top of it. And we have to basically look at like all those individual components and how to distill them, because you kind of have a base resemblance here, but it feels really generic, right? So if we look at a pillar, for example, this guy, we kind of have a lip, And then this thing comes out, which sort of makes sense, but there's like no frame to support it. What you would normally expect is that you would have a frame that supports the whole thing. And so there's like another cut here, another cut here, potentially a cut over here as well. What do they do with this space? Maybe there's like another little section with like 45-degree corners, right? That kind of goes down. And then this goes down instead of up, right? Because now what is happening is you have your base wall, which is here. And then this is on top of the base wall, which usually doesn't make sense. Like if you look at it from the top, so if we were looking at it, so this is your wall. Right? We're getting really messy here. If we're just looking at it from like the top. So that's your wall, and then you basically have your panel. This is what you are doing. The way that this usually works is if you have your wall, it's actually going inside of it and then comes back out. Like it's inset rather than coming out. And those details, they matter a lot in terms of how believable that wall is. That's what we can see here, right? It's not just a base board with just like a bunch of stuff added to it. It's really well like thought out, and it's constructed in a certain way. And that way, the way that it's constructed makes so much sense to us that we instinctively see whenever stuff goes wrong. Right? So like this stuff being above it, like doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense from like a logical manufacturing process. Whereas this stuff starts to look weird. Yeah. That's what I'm talking about. That helps. Let's see. We're gonna do a vote in the meantime. So Unbearably is asking some feedback on which design to go for. So if you want to vote like A, B, and C in the chat, and then we'll have a look in just a second. Yeah, vote A, B, or C for your favorite. In the meantime, let me go to the chat for a little bit. Route 1 is asking, could I apply for an environment artist job if my next project breaks down lighting, or would they need to see more environment art? If you want to go for the lighting artist position, I feel like you should dedicate yourself to it. The reason why is, let's say you're applying for my, right? You're coming in, your entire portfolio is filled with environment art. You're applying for the lighting artist position. I already know at that point that you are not dedicating yourself to lighting art. From like a business perspective, let's say I'm running the business and I want to hire you, I would rather hire someone who is really interested in lighting and will do lighting for a long time instead of only doing lighting as a way to get into the industry, pivoting, right? Because then you're basically only hiring someone until A, they get frustrated, or B, they pivot internally and then you have to hire again. Yeah. Let's see. C, C, B, C, B, C. Well, here's the thing though, right? Like I do enjoy lighting as well. Just curious. Here's the thing though, right? Like with AAA, you have to specialize. Like whenever you do like multiple things and you show multiple interests, that is usually by design already a point where I'm like, well, like where the industry is like, okay, we're gonna prioritize someone who really has a curated view of what they want to do, rather than a person who's like scattered across the place, right? For the same reasons that I mentioned before. Hey Alice, thank you so much for voting. Yeah, thanks everyone for voting. So it looks like C is a clear winner. I honestly completely agree with this. I personally just love the way that this like shape curves, you know, where you have like this more aggressive looking shape up here compared to these guys where it kind of just follows a curve more. I feel like this is more of an interest. Yeah. I agree. B is more realistic because the top part is thick, so it gives more velocity to swing someone. At least that's how it feels. But C is better. Yeah, C is better. Yeah, true. Yeah, it's literally you just like with your portfolio, you want to showcase what you want to do, right? And it usually for AAA, it has to be so specific that it's just like, hey, look, this is what you're gonna get from me. This is what you're hiring me for, and that's it, right? Especially in the beginning. Whereas at a later point, like branching out is probably like a really good idea. But in the beginning, you just have to dedicate yourself to like a singular thing for the most part. Switching over to Dylan. Let's have a look at Dylan. I don't think there was any question this time around. Just an update. It looks good though. Like I like the set dressing. I like the scattering that's happening with like all the shrines. I don't think it necessarily takes away from the collection either. Yeah, I think this is good, Dylan. Like I said here, looking great so far. Awesome progress. Good to see. Yeah. Hey, Veer, thank you so much for popping in. Lovely to have you. I'll see you next week. All right. Let's have a look. Who's next? We got David. Sorry for waiting so long for you, David. I think we need to get back to having people say if they're attending so that I can get them out of the way first. Because otherwise people end up waiting for such a long time. David, let's have a look. Your questions are most related to lighting. If there's more feedback on that, I would love to hear it. And on the organization side, okay, so we'll get into that in a bit. So, first of all, lighting, way cleaner. Love it. I think this is also perfect in terms of giving you a solid base to then start building up on. Because now we kind of have like more defined points where we want to attract people towards. It's great. And then what we can do is we can add like little spots of lighting where we can like reintroduce like, I don't know, like an additional focal point. I also love what you're kind of doing here where we're getting like slightly colored lights, but they don't feel distracting. So I do really love that. Keep in mind that, well, be careful about the contrast of this space, right? And how it relates to like the foreground. What I mean by that is just we're getting some sort of hierarchy, the light, but just being aware of like how much of a hierarchy we're creating and how much of that you want to retain. Because right now, the area up front, like this area, is kind of blending together a little bit, right? It was just something to be somewhat careful about. Yeah, I like where this is going. Way cleaner. And yeah, another point that I said is like now we can actually add color for extra emphasis. We can do that through lighting. We can do that through some of the cool assets that you're starting to add where we have like these barriers. They just add like a nice pop of color. Yeah, so they're going to be nice to play around with. And then for the second question, you wanted to talk about organization a little bit. Gonna be quick, but you started creating tasks in Notion, which I love Notion. Big fan. But you said based on the following criteria to estimate how long the project might take. So you have your task, you have the status, the priority, the hours, the area, and the description as well. And you're asking if this is a good way to organize a project. Do you have any suggestions to improve? So, with anything organizational wise, asking if it's a good way to organize a project depends on you, right? So that's why I kind of drew this here. It's you test, you use it, and then you refine what you do, right? So the best that you can do is just do this circle for a long time and just see what works for you. Because I tried doing it in Notion. I tried doing it in Kanban. I tried doing it on a notepad. I tried doing a whole bunch of stuff. None of that stuff really worked for me, especially when it came to do personal work. What really works for me is good old freaking post-it note. I have a lot of them. I have color-coded to-dos. So I have one for my stream, one for the book, one for the course, one for my personal project. And I tend to keep things at like a high level because here's the thing that I noticed about myself, and this is really the takeaway that I want people to take away from this, is that you kind of have to listen to your own sort of your own sort of like emotional state, your own sort of like artistic insights, your own sort of way of working, right? You need to come up with a system that works for you, not a system that people prescribe because they think it's like the best shit. Yeah, I know it's like a really convoluted way of saying just test it, see what works, and tweak it. Because I tried the whole thing where I was like, oh, I'm gonna plan everything out. I have like a list of this and it's gonna be good. It just didn't work because it felt like I was doing work and I was draining all the soul out of the work that I was doing. Which means, yes, I take well, I won't talk about my personal project now. But like I do take a longer, but I'm having more creative fulfillment by working in a more open way. I hope that makes sense. Whereas like sometimes if you go down this route, it kind of feels like you're producing your own work and it's like, it kind of sucks like all the fun out of it. But hey, again, if it works for you, then that's all you need to know, right? So again, to just double down, test it, use it for a while, and if you come up with a better thing, or if you hate something, like switch. Yeah, I hope that was helpful. I know it's pretty broad right? Oh, the final thing that I'll say on this topic is it is still good to have a deadline. And ideally, what you want to do with that deadline is you want to add external accountability. What I mean by that is talk to your 3D friends that you're really close with that can give shit whenever you fuck up. Tell them, like, hey, I want you to remind me, put this in your calendar. Like, I want to have this done by this date. And if not, I want you to tell me that I'm doing a bad job or whatever you do with your friends, right? Some people do this with money. Like, for example, they'll do this thing where, like, hey, if I don't finish this thing, this task, whatever it may be, if I don't finish it, I need to give you X amount of money, right? And it can be a small thing. It can be a fiver. It can be like, I don't know. It can be whatever the size of like currency. But it builds this like external accountability because I want to give like free money to my friends. So I'm going to make sure that I'm going to finish it. Yeah, there is something good about having a deadline at the end. Okay, round one. Let's have a look. I didn't have the time to prepare anything for you, so we're going in blind. Let's have a look. I do know that it's about scrolls, but let's have a look. For the scrolls plane, is it the lighting that makes them look like that, or the bakes as they come out very bright? You can see the different version from Marmoset. Different Marmoset. What I'm looking at? Looking at this guy? Oh, I see. So like the comparison between like the scrolls themselves and the actual titleable, is that what you're worried about? Because honestly, what I would do is I would just add like an overlay in your material and then just tint this with a lighter color so that it matches the scrolls and you're done. That's what I would do. That's like the easiest fix, right? Because I'm lazy. I mean, you could go back and forth and you could tweak like the material and all that kind of stuff. It is kind of interesting why it comes out so dark though. I don't know why that is. It is really contrasted though. So yeah, I'm not too sure what's happening there, but honestly, yeah, I would just do like a little overlay or something like that. That's all we need. I baked the diffuse in the roughness. Oh, so maybe, well, yeah. I mean, the roughness shouldn't matter. The diffuse mostly. But it looks like it has like a really strong AO. Yeah, there might be something wrong there. I've never baked a marmoset though, so I kind of can't give you any. But it kind of has that feeling that it has like a lot of AO, like happening. Especially if you look at the dark areas in here, they're like really dark. Let's see. For this guy, yeah, see why I love Nvidia so much. You can just add base color, multiply, additional color, like your tint color. Good. I might turn off AO in the high poly. Yeah. I think that's a good shout. That stuff looks really good though. Yeah, and potentially adding like way more geo in it as well, because they do have a lot of geometry, right? Yeah, cool stuff. I think that's gonna look sick though. Like in general, like just the whole view of it kind of looks really good already. It would be kind of nice to potentially have like more variations. Like for example, this one is maybe not empty, but like partially empty, and they're stacking like a bunch of them up in. I think I saw this in like Assassin's Creed where they just have like these cross chair thingies with like a stack of them on top of it. Did I see that in your ref or something like that? I don't remember. And that could be cool. Could add like an additional prop as well. Yeah, just like a bunch on the table. It'd be cool. Let's see. The second question. Oh, sorry. Like the first question is, should I use the high polys or create more like circular ones? As in Assassin's Creed Origin from reference, they give off a better shape. How would they do the process when baking on a plane similar to mine? I mean, you've got like the workflow is good, right? So like just taking the assets that you've already made and then just like stacking them in a way that you can just project them down onto a plane. The only thing that you have to take care of is just the kind of shapes that you're baking down, right? Because right now, would height help? Potentially, but I think you can improve the actual bake still. So what you could do is you have to think about things in like 3D space, right? Because right now, your scrolls, especially the rolled up ones, right? We are looking from here. Right? So this is my camera. We're looking straight down. What is happening is that you have your scrolls and they're basically just a tube. What you need to do to get like more interesting stuff going on with your bake is you kind of want to have them shaped like this, so that you can see them kind of like fan out. Right? That's what you want to do. So now we're making better use of like the width. And what that does is we can see like a gradient. What that does here is that we're seeing like a gradient going from like the edge towards the middle. And that is going to help a lot with like how it's going to read, right? Because we're flaying it open more. And then if we extend it that way, that means that we get like height variation in the way that the scrolls behave, and it's going to help simulate the depth as well. And that honestly is going to help a lot. You can kind of see that in here as well. Like they have a different approach because they have like thick, chunky ones, right? Which is not a bad idea. Like having a couple of those, just like really like rolled up ones. That actually makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Yeah, even those like thick rolled up ones, right? They have like a lot of, there's a lot happening in this like area here where it like looks really interesting and looks like varied. Even though it's still a tube compared to here, right? Like I think they treat it more as like solid objects that just have like a really nice texture rather than a plane. Like just like a rolled up plane. Yeah, that could definitely work. That could definitely work. So feedback on the current look of the scene with the current final assets. What do I need to fix? And what do you like most? Asking 2 questions here. Hang on, people keep scrolling the rules. So what do I need to fix? I think emptiness is like the thing that you need to fix most now. Is I want to see way more assets. Like stuff like this. Like a table with like a pile of scrolls, you know, like having some crazy stuff going on here. It feels too modest. Like you almost need to like exaggerate anything that's happening. Have like a bunch of these like X tables that have like a pile of scrolls on them. Right? And then maybe you have like, oh shit, like this one kind of spilled out like a bunch of scrolls, or maybe it kind of fell over or something like that, and just like a bunch of scrolls like just lying on the floor. Yeah, making it more visually interesting is gonna be the case. There's already like a lot of assets that you've made, right? Especially with the they're so flexible and they're so fun to play around with. That if we look at some probably from of course it's all AI. Oh, okay. Amogus. You almost have to look at what they did in. Oh man. Big picture. Yeah, whatever. If you look at the library here, like in games, we're usually like really limited in what we can do with spaces because we have to think about NPC navigation, like how you walk around in a space. So basically the stuff that you're doing here is it's actually quite decent for the game, but we need to balance that with like an interesting looking location as well, right? So we can keep like a corridor kind of clean. Let's say this space, we don't really want to put anything in it, because that allows us to walk freely around it. But I would think about ideas on how to fill up the rest of it though, and like really have like interesting sections of the space. Yeah, we make it look kick-ass. That's the main concern that I have. Like I don't want it because you're putting in a lot of effort. I just want you to like use more of what you already have and come up with like cool ideas on how to fill up the entrances. Yeah. But yeah, it's really coming together though. I really like the way that the architecture is. Like you're getting like a good read on the lighting now. It's coming together like really nicely. Yeah. Well, yeah, I think the lighting is in a good place. I would just leave the lighting and then just do it at the end, right? Because now you've got like the scene is representable, like it's in a good state. You just need to get a bunch of like interesting assets in there, like really fill up the space, make it interesting. So yeah, make it epic. Some banners would look nice. Yeah, potentially. Also, look at adding some color in these like ornamental sections, you know? Because if you look at like old like Greek architecture, a lot of it like we see now and we think that it was all sandstone, but it's actually not the way that it was back in the day. They were like really colorful. They had like lots of paints and like drawings and all that kind of stuff. So that would be cool to look into. Yeah. Let me make some notes here. Assassin's Creed Odyssey has a lot of great references. Yeah. Honestly, oh, what could be a good shout actually? Do the Odyssey history tour or whatever they call it, where they actually explain like the historical references and how they translated them into the game. That could be cool. I think I actually downloaded a couple of them because I still want to go through them myself. So yeah, filling out the empty space, adding like pops of color. Yeah, definitely do more with the scrolls. We're gonna put like carved text on top of the doorway that has a word astronomy. So the area where you are is the astronomy area. I'm gonna add painting. Yeah, that's good. That's good. Would they do them on the columns though? Because I mean, the columns, they kind of have like little ornamental sections, right? But I would expect, especially in like these more open areas, that there would be something there. I mean, honestly, I'm sort of guessing as well. So this is where references could come in, right? Like how this works, like architecturally, and where they would put like ornamental details. So yeah, might be one to have a look at. Yeah. Oh, also, I'll add a fourth thing. Is have a look at camera position. I know we didn't talk about that and we should have done that earlier, but I feel like now we're disembodied. We're disembodied from like the camera space, right? We're just floating in space. Maybe something that's a little bit more grounded like this could help you feel more grounded as well. Or maybe we're looking down from like a balcony, like a raised area or something. That could also work. By just adding like, you can literally get away with like a piece that you already have, adding like a little balcony here, like in the foreground. Sometimes you get away with simple stuff like that. It's hard that it's not a reference about how it was described. Lower now? Yeah. Yeah, you just have to do a lot of digging, right? Like just really digging into like historical, like archaeological references. See, you basically have to find like the nerdiest people that talk about like this era in history and see what they have to say about it. Like I bet you that those are going to be like less than 1,000 views on like YouTube videos, but they must be out there. Or even find like museum curators or like people like educators that talk about it, right? Walk around videos from Origins. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's basically the closer that you can get to like the reality of it. That could be good, right? Because even what you could potentially do is, so for, I know that for Ubisoft, for those games, they hired a either a consultant or they had like a full-time historian like on staff, where I would honestly look up their name and see if they do like any public talks or if they have like any books that came out or any videos that they do themselves talking about that era, right? Because if Ubisoft found them, they must have found them for a reason. So that must mean that they might have like other stuff flowing. Yep, that could be cool to look into. Yeah, thank you for posting your work, John. Appreciate it. Gonna move on to Megval. Next. Oh, the top one. Oh god. So question. What are your thoughts on texture and the modeling at this stage for the prayer wheel? Cool. These are really cool looking assets. The main thing that immediately stood out is we need to kill anything that feels straight, you know? See. So these edges, we need to make them more organic because right now they feel like really straight. And if you look at some of the ref, you can kind of see that they have like, it's carved wood, right? So that you kind of see like undulations, that kind of stuff, like making them feel really nice. You can apply the same thing to the wood as well, even though you're seeing some of that stuff, which is coming along like really nicely, but you can definitely exaggerate some of it too. So yeah, I mean, let's draw a straight line. Look at that, right? Like that's a straight line, and look at how crooked that is. It's very subtle, but it's noticeable, right? And the same thing here, right? Like look at this line. None of them are aligned. Like you have like smaller ones and bigger ones. Like nothing is ever straight. Anything. So like, yeah, all that kind of stuff. You need to kill a straight line. That always helps a lot because otherwise it's gonna feel like 3D. So I'm putting you on a contract, and I'm putting you on a hunting contract to kill all straight lines. That's your next bounty. It sounds a bit more exciting than your stereotypical quest, right? Like get like 20 get like 20 squirrel pelts or whatever. Yeah, these are looking cool though. I like them visually. I think they're gonna add like a really nice pop of color. You have to be careful with where you're gonna put them. I would imagine that like putting them near the entrance of like a temple is like a good shout. Yeah, just something to be aware of, right? Because they are gonna draw attention. Cool. 3. Let's have a look. What was the other question here? I'll make another variant so that I can do some variation, like reference. Oh, yeah. Cool. I didn't read. So for that. As you're saying in the chat as well. Yeah, make 2 or 3 variants. That would be good. That's definitely going to be helpful. And honestly, like you can even use like the same texture, because the benefit of something like this is if you're smart in the way that you texture it, which you are, you can honestly literally just like rotate this guy, rotate this guy, rotate this guy. Maybe add a couple more, scale up and down, and then you have a new asset, right? Like you honestly, I mean, it's good that you have free UV space, so you might as well make use of it, right? To be efficient. But even if you didn't have it, like I wouldn't even make like a new texture, because you can just make use of like what's already there by just like rotating, scaling, even cutting one out and just having one that's like broken, you know? You have a lot of flexibility with this stuff. Cool. Yeah, that's cool though. And then for the planks, I want to get some feedback on the high polys. I'm currently getting them from the generator. Really cool, really cool. I like what I'm seeing. Really good output. Ready. I think on the noise levels, you might have to be somewhat careful. Overall, I really like it. Yeah, it would be nice to just have like a little bit more where you have like a section like this, which has like a lot of like very distinguishable nerves, and then you have like just area that's like a little bit less. Just a little bit more variation. Well, here's the thing. I don't think you need to scale them up, because I actually like how detailed they are, like the actual veins, right? Or like the cuts in the side of the wood. So I kind of like the scale. It's just we want to have more variation in again, we don't want to have that scale across the board. We want to have that for detailed areas and have subtler areas in other areas, right? So, for example, if we look at something like this, it could then be like, hey, this stuff, you have like one little cut in here, and then this is just clean section here. But now we're getting like this is more interesting to look at because there's more variation. Adding some parameters currently that you can play around with. That's cool. Yep. Cool. But yeah, like the actual output of it already looks really good. I like the knotting and like how it translates to the sides as well. That's gonna look so. Good. Oh. Nice. The top of the cylinder. Here as well. Made that one more worn and damaged. Yeah. I feel like we wanna it's a weird in between here, right? Like either it's gonna be like nice and soft, right? And it's just worn over time. Or it's gonna be like it's almost gonna be cracked and it's gonna be like very spiky. You know, I feel like this is sort of like this weird in between where it's neither either like or, if that makes sense. So we kind of expect it to be, for example, try to find a balance for that. Yeah. Yeah, it's almost like it's gonna be like this sort of like very soft shape, or it's gonna be like a very, very spiky shape where it's like it's recently cracked, right? I mean, even if you pull a couple of spikes on, good enough to tell the effect. Something like that could work. One wood plank at a time, taking over all of our jobs. Yeah, it's looking really nice though. I do really like it. Obviously, this is where we're gonna run into issues because usually what you want to do is you don't want to spend like geometry on this. You kind of want to have like alphas, right? So you have like your geo that goes into alphas, and that's how you create like those spiky shapes, right? So honestly, I mean, also in context and how big it's going to be on the screen, right? This is more than serviceable, right? We always need to take that into account. Like, this looks good for where it's potentially going to be used, right? Because we are never going to be dunking our face into this pillar ever, right? The camera is never going to be this. So all that said, you know, like, focus on the big picture as well. Because yeah, it will more than enough do its job in whatever situation you're going to be using. I can guarantee that. Yeah, great stuff, McFal. This is looking really nice. Yeah, that's going to be a cool kit to be using. I wonder if you have other areas where you can use it. Oh. Probably on the sides of like the building, like making all like the wooden structures. That would be cool. Yeah, great stuff, man. Really cool looking like wood generator that you have going on. I really like the shapes already. Yeah, I was thinking like the buildings have a lot of planks. That's gonna be sick. Like having them on there, that's gonna look really good. Again, like we did before, right? Like just throw them on there and see how they look. Because that's gonna give you a lot of information. Yeah, great stuff, McFal. It's also nice to not make clips for like fucking 250 a week in the row. I get it. Sometimes, yeah, the iteration sometimes can be draining, right? But no, this is looking really cool, man. Really cool. And that's also a thing. Like we come back to it. Like you have to be aware of like, hey, I'm sort of like draining my battery with this. Let me just spend a week on this, and then I can come back recharged on like those cliffs. Because sometimes you need that. Sometimes you need to disconnect to then make things better. Great stuff, McFal. Looking forward to see it next week. See how this progressed. And also to see it in the context of the whole scene. Would be cool to see these placed in the scene already. Awesome. Nice one. And then last one for today, we got Nicholas. I feel like this week is likely the last week Wednesday before this project is finished. I think so too. You're like, yeah, I'm probably not going to have too much to add. Let's see. So, questions. Because of the subtlety of the additional storytelling elements, would it be necessary for me to create a short segment in a panning video of the scene to highlight them, or something of similar effect as a small gameplay video, me going up and interacting with it? Or would it be okay to leave it as is? If it is like small additional storytelling stuff, oh, I'm gonna point out some like final tweaks. We talked about it already. Like, these images are still old. And they're scaled non-uniformly, which stretches them. That would be, sorry, got distracted there. But when it comes to the additional pieces of storytelling, it's good to have them there. And then people should be able to make up their own mind and like read the scene by just looking at the frame. So I think it's more than good enough Because I don't think a video is actually going to help with like selling it necessarily. Because usually a video is reserved for like scenes that have a lot of movement, which this doesn't really, right? Or if you want to go and like animate the curtains slightly, and she'd be cool, like a slight swinging of the chandelier, but that stuff is all optional, right? It's not for the question that you. Um, so I don't think it's necessarily worth it. I do have to say, and I did this on purpose. I have not read the storytelling, so I'm trying to gather it as I'm looking at it. What is happening there? Is that a knight? Because I'm seeing like scratched out. I'm not getting the storytelling. So first of all, I mean, this also is great feedback, right? Like the sort of thought process that I just went through, where it is hard to tell what is happening. So that might be an indication of, hey, maybe it is nice to have more and have an actual look at what is happening, because it is somewhat hard to tell. So that could be a good indication. Yeah, but I'll leave the actual execution of that. I'll leave that up to you, because if these are like little knives or like little scratches and they're always scratching out like the person in the frame, I don't think that's necessarily like interesting way of delivering that story, right? Because we're just like stabbing like the guy with like knife in like all the paintings. I feel like that is like it's asking a question of like, okay, but who would do this though? Like, and who would like keep the knife in all the frames as well? Like, it kind of feels weird, and then we also contradict that with like the semi abandoned nature of it. Like, it just doesn't really add up. Like, it feels pretty inconsistent. Um, Slate is saying, is this already the Resident Evil 9 level? It looks beautiful. Yeah, it does. I think the lighting does a good job in this, or in this scene. So let me read the story. So, for storytelling, I decided to add hints that the house was abandoned because the husband was involved in a scandal, resulting in him not being able to afford the house and his wife leaving, right? So, okay, that is like part one. Let me jump in here and say that that is visually really difficult to portray, right? And we're visual storytellers, right? So how do we convey that he wasn't able to afford the house anymore, right? So we can kind of do that with like the decay and like all that stuff that we have, but that could also just be like a time thing as well. Plus, also like, I mean, there's still a bunch of other stuff around that if they really wanted to, they could have sold like all the paintings, right, to afford the house. I know I'm just looking at like the logic of the story, and there's like it just doesn't really add up all too well, right? Let's see, let's continue. So I tried to do this by adding newspaper clippings in the fireplace burned with the title Scandal still present. Oh shit, I didn't even notice that. Okay, we have like a newspaper clipping in there. But his face is not shown and the wedding ring sits atop. Okay, very specific and very niche, right? Because it's very symbolic, but it's hard to make the connection between all the things. I would honestly, if I didn't know the story, like at this point, like if you're telling me all this, it would be about the guy being unfaithful, and then potentially the wife getting so mad that she did something to him or something like that, right? And then he ended up deceased, and then she ended up in jail or something like that, and that's why the place is abandoned, essentially, right? I then changed the portraits to 2 family photos and 2 single person photos, one of the wife and one of the husband. In all the photos, the husband was in, his face is cut, seen to indicate that the wife is angry. A pair of scissors taken in one of them, that they would buy her and not natural. Okay, I assumed that they were like in all the images that they just had like something. That does make a little bit more sense. Like I said, it's still a flimsy story just in terms of like the logic of it, right? Because it's really hard to get that like the husband wasn't able to afford the house anymore, and that's why the wife went in and like scratched out all the portraits, right? It feels that is really difficult to convey already. Because I honestly feel that it's potentially better maybe not have them scratched up at this point and just make it feel like it's like an abandoned just abandoned house that like no one has discovered, right? So there's like a lot of that kind of stuff. I know that I'm kind of probably going back on my word on that a little bit, right? Because I was probably the one that suggested like a story, but I don't think forcing a story into the environment is working in the way that we're thinking about it now. That's why I'm kind of going back on my word there. Yeah, I'm trying to think if we can make like the husband not being able to afford the house like dignified somehow. I can't really think about it so well, honestly. This is going to be really difficult to convey. I think just a natural decay would kind of do that in most cases. So yeah, let's go back. I think in this case, because I didn't get any of the story elements, right? So this was like pre-feedback. Pre-reading story. So after reading the story, it does make sense to add like additional screenshots for the story. And I think if you do it in a certain sequence, I think it might actually work. Like if you like either in stills, you show like the ring first, and then the paintings that are all scratched out, and then we zoom out to like the bigger image. I think that could be interesting. Have to go and eat pizza. Oh my god, long pig. I'm so jealous. Enjoy your pizza, and thanks for sitting in as well. I know it's a long session again, so appreciate yours. Yeah. Long story short, I think additional screenshots would really help with this. I know this was a roller coaster for like the last bit of feedback. Yeah, I think it would be really helpful to have additional screenshots to really help support, so that we could. The way that I'm thinking about this is doing that one first, then we're doing the frame second potentially, or maybe like this section of frames second potentially, and then we zoom out to like the wider scene, and that is going to be like number something like that. Yeah, you could make it work. Yeah. So yeah, have a look at like additional screenshots. That could be good. And I think that was all about that I had to say about the scene, Nicholas. Great stuff on the scene. Well presented. I think the lighting itself, like, really, really good. Yeah, great stuff. And thanks for letting me join on the feedback ride as well. I appreciate that too. Great stuff. Looking forward to seeing this posted. Yeah, and thanks for everyone for sitting in for such a long session. like we went like an hour over. I didn't have too much time to do prep. It's been a busy day, but I appreciate all for being here for the ride. Yeah, if you like this, share it with your friends, share it with your mom, share it with your family, whoever could enjoy this. Helps us out as well. Yeah, and without any further ado, yeah, if you want to participate in these sessions, always join the community. You get a bunch of free stuff, like we have a PDF stuff included, so go check that all out. Yeah, without further ado, I'll see you next week for another session of Wednesday, and thank you so much for tuning in too. Bye bye everyone.